Lights? Sounds?
Action. Hello.
Hi.
How are you?
Hi. Hi.
Hello. Do you want to read that one out?
Yeah.
The statement is, it's easier to be a man than a woman.
I don't think that's true. I think the patriarchy harms everyone, but I think that there are certain things that women also have to deal with that men don't. I think being a woman is scarier.
I think for me, so I've only started like passing as male in like the last year. Adult men are now nice to me because they assume I'm one of them, which is incredibly gross.
I don't know how to like describe it, but I actually like a lot of stuff about being a girl. But I also think that it can be difficult, like opportunities.
Or they expect me as a mixed race person to be someone who's involved with like street crime.
You know, everybody already acknowledges the existence of sexism. For example, like the gender pay gap. I like who I am, and I wouldn't change who I am as a person. If I could, I'd just change the society we live in.
My name's Lydia and I'm Head of Participation at Young Women's Trust. Young Women's Trust champions young women aged 18 to 30 who live on low or no pay, and we work in 3 ways. We campaign for a more equal world of work. We support young women directly through our coaching and CV feedback service, and we also conduct research into the lives of young women that actually also helps fuel our campaigns as well. Yeah, so we've been doing, at Young Women's Trust, we've been doing a lot of work into the issues that young women are facing who live on low or no pay. And one of the biggest things that we found recently was that actually young women aged 18 to 30 earn a fifth less than men the same age per year. So that's £5,000 less on average a year. And we don't think that's fair. And what we also found is that if we don't do something about that now at the beginning of their working lives, that gap grows even more over the course of their lifetime. And so the things that are the drivers for what we call the income gap, so that £5,000 less a year that young women earn, drivers like young women tend to be working in low paid jobs and sectors, and they tend to get stuck there. They also face a lot more discrimination at work than men, and this prevents them from progressing at work, achieving their full potential. They also take on more unpaid work, such as childcare, and then if they do have caring responsibilities outside of work and are working, they tend to be working in part-time jobs as well. And so that's why it's really important that we tackle these things. We work with government, we work with employers to reduce that income gap so that young women can have a more fair financial future.
Thank you, I really hope you achieve that.
Thank you.
Right, thank you so much.
No worries, thank you.
Brilliant.
We learned about the importance of closing the income gap for men and women, and the injustices women face in the workplace. There are many problems with pay gaps in the job industry, and Lydia's organisation is working to address and eradicate these to get equal opportunities for all.
We found it interesting how women make a fifth less than men. We hope to stop this in the future.
Why do we even have genders? Like, we're just putting ourselves in boxes if we have genders. Like, if your sex is whatever's between your legs, then why bother with genders? Like, why put ourselves in more boxes? Be whoever you want.
It's an incredibly like Western thing to just like divide people that way.
Yeah.
It's especially in like a lot of like native cultures. There's like two-spirit people, and all throughout hundreds and hundreds of cultures.
Queer theory is an amazing, what we call methodology. And a methodology is just a tool or a lens for seeing the world, for seeing anything. So the idea is that if you put on these queer theory glasses, it quite literally changes the way that you see, or the way that you ask something a question. Queer theory really expanded that idea of sexuality being multiple, porous, elastic. And this comes from like the idea from feminism that gender isn't essential. I'm Tilly Scantlebury. Feels strange saying, but Dr Tilly Scantlebury, art historian, a lecturer, visiting practitioner, and here at the Courthald, I'm a public programmes educator. My belief that art doesn't just change the way that we see or the way that we think, but fundamentally can change the way that we are in the world. And that's kind of why I think this role is, why I'm still so interested in it, because I can see the effects of that all the time. When we were in the gallery, we looked at Manage des Unes Celebes. So I teach this in terms of relationships of power and like gender dynamics. And I get people to think, like, what is that woman looking at? And really quickly, people of all ages are able to say, she's looking at me. Like me, you, all of us. And then very quickly we go on from there saying, how is she posed? Or she's naked. Imagine if you were naked and people around you were clothed. Wouldn't you be more like this? Wouldn't you be huddled over, kind of feelings like, being ashamed or worried or scared? And then we think about things like gesture. And so he's pointing. So he's pointing at the woman, but he's looking at the other man, the other clothed man. So things like pose, gesture and expression really help us to unpack what's going on in the painting and why it would have been so shocking. And we think, these are two clothed men having a conversation about the naked woman, with which she has no real part in. And then I get people to think, like, what would that feel like? And so from really simple questions of kind of what do you see and how would that feel, very quickly a very exciting conversation about gender occurs. Young people have a vocabulary and like a toolkit that I wouldn't have had even when I was at school, which isn't that long ago. So the way that young people are able to connect with ideas of gender and sexuality and express themselves about it, that makes me feel like, okay, maybe this is going to be okay. Yeah, gender liberation would improve everybody's life. And so that's my hope, that everyone is free.
I like the idea young people gave them hope, because I think as a young person I can definitely see my generation trying to change society for the better, and one way we are doing that is by tackling the idea of gender norms and binary roles.
The pain of a punch brings adrenaline through me, making me stronger.
When I feel I'm stuck and can only stand still, I know I can walk.
How are you doing?
I'm doing good, how are you?
Oh, glamorous, all the better for seeing you. My name is Lukasz Konieczka. I'm the Executive Director at Mosaic LGBT+ Young Persons Trust in London. We have been set up as an organisation to support, educate and inspire LGBT+ young persons aged 12 to 18, although very shortly it will be 18 to 25 as well, because we're expanding the services in September, and we deliver a whole range of services, so we see ourselves as being very holistic in the way that we work. So we just came back, literally just got back from summer camp, and we also do things like events. So we have just had in July our Pride Prom. We run 2 youth clubs a week, which is one's on Wednesday, one is on a Sunday. But generally kind of everything that we do is underpinned by the idea that we're providing joy to young persons. We're having a massive backlash of attitudes against trans people today, and I think that's like the big issue. Like, we're creating a society where it's unsafe for people to be who they are, which is, I think, hugely problematic in my view. That also kind of translates into struggle for access to healthcare, and I think, or lack thereof, full stop now, because the young person services, gender identity development service has been disbanded and there's now a replacement. I think the government has threatened with introducing new guidelines which will force teachers to out trans students. All of a sudden we have trans people being a problem, while actually people cannot afford their rents, and they cannot afford the heating, and they cannot afford the travel and all those other things that are happening across the globe. And I think the most vulnerable communities and the minority communities within the communities, so like the trans community specifically, are always a bit more vulnerable to being targeted for political gain. So I think there is something really important about us kind of realizing that we can only achieve progress when we start looking and stop limiting people from day one. And if you want to play with Barbies, play with Barbies. Like, really not a big deal. Like, I don't see how is that a problem for a boy to play with Barbies. Like, I don't see how is that an issue. And if you think that's an issue, then you are the problem, right? Essentially, bottom line being. We have to give people right to be themselves. And I think until we have that kind of embedded within the society, we are going to produce unhappiness. We're going to produce mediocre professionals. We're going to produce people who are actually not capable of making the difference in the world, right? We need to make sure that the people are actually going with their passions and their callings, right?
My takeaway message from Lukasz's interview was that gender struggle has had a lasting effect on the LGBTQ+ community, and that Mosaic LGBT Trust is trying to help youth to feel safe from those impacts.
The games I like playing doesn't define who I am, but the inside does.
Hands so capable for death, creating life for others. Forces clash together.
People should just do whatever they want, and if we didn't have any idea of gender, then people wouldn't have to worry about boxes and how they are.